Cops. A lot of people get jumpy and try to act normal around law enforcement. How can you tell genuinely suspicious people from self-conscious idiots acting weird? Story 1. Police instructor here. You look for what is out of place/context. If everyone is looking at an event or a certain direction and that one person is staring at you or in the completely opposite direction, that's the oddball. People draw attention to themselves by behavior that is different from the environment or expected of the environment that they are in. It's how they identified the Boston bomber. Everyone was looking in the direction of the explosion, but the brothers were staring in the opposite direction. Suspicious behavior. This technique can be applied to clothing as well. If it's summer and you see people wearing heavy jackets, there's something odd. Somebody keeps tapping the waistline and there's no reason for him to do that, like something's falling off of it and there's something tucked in their waistline, drugs or weapons. Now, not saying that this gives you an excuse to go up and start harassing people, however, it definitely lets you narrow down the focus of your attention for what is out of place. Story 2. I don't put much consideration on someone's nervousness to the likeliness of them committing a crime. We need reasons or probable cause to determine that. However, someone's jumpiness is a tactical cue to me that they may more likely run or fight, especially if I already have probable cause of a crime occurring. Most people are scared when stopped by the police, but this fear is different than jumpiness. Fear is a little more subdued than the tension of someone looking for an escape. Another consideration is that if someone suffers from a mental illness, their symptoms are usually clearly different than someone who is plain scared or jumpy. Also, someone who is affected by drugs clearly has distinct signs. It's pretty complicated to explain, but simple when observing it in person every day. I would argue about just how clear it is to police officers, especially when it comes to judging when someone is suffering from any kind of mental illness or whatnot. I think a lot of cops think they can tell the difference, but that isn't always the case. Story 3. Not a cop, but I'm a Florida native, and I'm usually dressed in shorts and a t-shirt. I was in a flyover state for a concert and was supposed to pick someone up about 4 hours away in the morning. Instead of getting a hotel for 5 hours, I decided to drive to my destination and sleep in the back of the rental car. Usually when I do this, I roll the windows down and sleep with the car off, but it was in the mid-30s this night. I pulled into a vacant parking lot next to a vacant building outside of town. Turns out I was still in city limits. I tried to turn the running lights off, but wasn't able to. This eventually attracted the attention of the local law enforcement. I woke up to a flashlight banging on my window. They, all 9 of them, wanted me out of the car while they tried to figure out what was going on. Being as it was cold, I started to shake. I shared how I thought it was amusing that I was shaking and that it would likely raise suspicion. The cop that was babysitting me at that moment said, "No, it's cold out." She then let me get into the car and started again. 9 out of 10 would recommend. Story 4. Every time I get pulled over, as soon as my tag is run through the system, the police get on their bullhorn and tell me to get out and lay on the ground. Not because I'm black, because I'm a 2-time convicted felon, been crime-free for 6 years, but I always find it amusing, and after all the foolishness, I always have a laugh with them. Duval, Florida. Story 5. Cops once woke me up at 3 a.m. in the morning because my neighbor saw flashlights in the woods next to my house, and then they started questioning me, asking why I seemed so nervous, and if I wasn't doing anything, why were there footprints in the snow in front of my effing front door? I was a 19-year-old kid living on my own in a small town, so small it didn't have a population. I just remember being absolutely flabbergasted at why they would want to know why someone might be nervous from getting a visit from the cops in the middle of the night, and why they thought footprints in a heavily traveled area was suspicious. I basically told them some variation of that and then told them they were welcome to look around outside if they wanted before they left. This was during deer hunting season in Wisconsin, so the only thing I could think of is that maybe they thought there was some poaching going on. Still, it showed a remarkable detachment from reality that they couldn't understand why I was so nervous to begin with. Yeah, I'm sorry, but if anyone comes knocking on my door in the middle of the night and those people also have weapons, I'm going to be nervous. Like, even if I have nothing to fear from the cops, clearly there is something to be worried about because the cops are checking the area. Story 6. I knew a police helicopter pilot and asked a similar question when searching for suspects. He said that the bad guys were the ones not looking up at the helicopter. Innocent people look, point, stare, etc. I thought it was funny, but true to a point. I was taking the bins out one night and there was a police helicopter nearby. All of a sudden, they lit me up with the spotlight. I was like a deer in the headlights, and after a second or two, slowly waved at them, and then after a few more seconds, the spotlight moved on elsewhere. It was so awkward they must have been peeing themselves laughing. Story 7. Ex-cop still licensed, if that matters. You can't always tell. That is why treating everyone as close to the same as possible is important. The average person will change their behavior around the police officer at least a little bit. It can be a weird over-respect type deal, or they may shut down completely. The average criminal acts nearly the same. However, that is why it's important to be very aware of the person's movements and responses to questions of your own movements. If you ask a person with drugs in the car, "Do you have drugs in the car?" his eyes will very commonly dart towards where he or she is hiding something, even if it's not drugs. That, of course, does not give me probable cause to tear their car apart looking for stuff. It's just a red flag. A person who is simply nervous and is not really guilty of a crime will most likely just break eye contact and look somewhere, such as out the window, behind you, down at the wheel, etc. Same goes for a person you may simply be suspicious of on the street. "Are you carrying any weapons?" will lead to a person carrying a weapon to often touch the area where it is, usually repeatedly, or start to look at where they have hidden a weapon. A person who is just nervous probably won't grab their waistband several times after that question. That is just one example, but it shows the importance of communication, being aware of the surroundings and subject, and why asking questions is very important. All because a person who is simply nervous and a criminal who is nervous are almost indistinguishable without some digging. As for people who appear totally 100% calm, well, that in and of itself can be a red flag as well. Maybe he or she is calm because they like police. Maybe they are police in a different area. Maybe they really do have nothing to hide and a good understanding of police procedures. Or they are a hardened criminal that has no sense of remorse or anxiety over meeting a cop. You never know unless you start to look deeper. So anyone who feels like cops hate you or are mean, maybe that sheds a bit of light on things. I think that is a little helpful, yeah. I like that this person understands that these things can just be possibly indicators, and try to treat everyone the same seems important. I do think there are a few too many cops who aren't great at that, or their default treatment of people is just bad. Story 8. Not a cop, but having worked at a pawn shop, I will say they talked way too much. When the customer was trying to pull something on us, most would talk a lot about nothing, keep up a constant stream of chatter. Of course, this is in no way 100% indicator, but it was one sign we looked for. Liars will usually offer additional explanations and excuses for something even when you don't ask, mostly because they assume you doubt what they'll say and feel the need to back up their claims. Imagine a friend is late and he says, sorry, I forgot, and move on. That's probably true because he didn't even consider for a moment you might doubt that. That same friend shows up late but starts explaining in detail why they are late, and add more and more details to that story even though you didn't ask. They might be making crap up and trying to present a more finite, flawless story. Edit. Some people are pointing out that this only applies to bad liars. Duh, of course. Tips for spotting obvious liars only applies to people who didn't perfect the art. Story 9. Great question. I'm a cop in Arizona. It's important to know the cultural and societal norms of your patrol area. A huge amount of folks carry guns here, for example. Your average law-abiding citizen will generally use a holster and not be deceptive about the weapon. Bad guys will not be forthcoming. We have some issues with Mexican drug cartels, and they tend to blend in somewhat, but have guns in unique calibers, such as .38 8 Super. Since we do have a huge Hispanic community, it helps to know the norms for their behavior, which differs somewhat from the white community. A vast majority of the time, we will be dealing with people while investigating specific crimes. There's a huge variety of factors involved in that, but generally speaking, you are going to use 4 of your senses to make educated guesses: sight, smell, touch, sound. A person whose voice wavers may just be afraid of cops. Combine that with an odor of drugs or a suspicious protrusion on their body, then there could be an issue. While cultural knowledge is important, there are some universal signs of deception which you would probably recognize. I spent a year in Afghanistan doing police work as well, and those principles held true there too. To a degree, it's profiling, which is a dirty word but a pragmatic principle. And questions? Fire away. Story 10. Pulled over for being lost in the wrong neighborhood. Was relieved as I did not have a GPS at the time. Horribly lost. Was hoping the cop that had been tailing me for the last mile would pull me over to get directions. Wants to know why a white boy like me is in a neighborhood like this. I explain I'm lost. Doesn't believe me, says I'm here for drugs. My whole attitude changed because I'm suddenly nervous. Why would he think that? And realizing this could go badly. He said only guilty people act nervous. He ends up calling a K9 unit to search my car. Other cop is really cool. We chat and he apologized for first cop being a jerk. After the search, he gives me directions on how to get to my destination. Good cop, bad cop is real. Yeah, I think it's important to remember, folks, however you might feel about the police as a whole, they are composed of individuals. Some individuals try to be good, and some don't seem to make that effort. I feel like to those cops, there's no difference between nervousness and guilt. Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. Story 11. The funny thing is, if I'm off duty and around a uniformed officer I don't know, different department area, etc., I get nervous. Hell, my heart sometimes skips a beat when I see one of our cars driving down the road, even though it may be the same exact vehicle I was assigned to just a few hours ago. My point is, I think pretty much everyone gets nervous around a cop. Most people will avoid you and not make eye contact. But what really stands out for me are the adults that will periodically look at you, or you feel them staring at you like they're trying to ID your face. I've had to arrest a lot of people over the years, and many of them are back out on the streets. Story 12. Your post reminds me of a funny piece of info. A good friend of mine works as a lawyer for one of the bigger insurance companies in defense. A good percent of accidents happen because people freak out about the mere presence of a cop and don't focus on the actual driving. Like, literally during a deposition, I didn't see them pull out. There was a cop on the same road. Story 13. I'm one of those jumpy people. I've been pulled over and screamed at, "Why are you so nervous? What are you hiding?" And another time, the cop was very nice and just said, "Relax, it's just a ticket. Are you okay? Do you want to catch your breath? Not a big deal. Take a couple deep breaths, buddy." Super friendly and help me relax. I get anxiety in those situations without any real cause. I just get really nervous. It's crazy how differently cops can handle the situation in the exact same circumstances, just one was nicer or trained better. Story 14. Cop here. I'll give a serious answer instead of all the others. Assuming this is on a traffic stop for the most part, if you are acting jumpy, I try to figure out why and remove that stress. If I can't figure it out on my own, I'll just simply ask. Common answers are, I don't like cops, I don't want a ticket, and so on. My reasoning for this is, if you're relaxed and I ask if there are any weapons in the car and your press indicators skyrocket when you say no, something is wrong. If you're already stressed, I won't be able to see that reaction. As others have stated, it's not 100%. Some people are just nervous Nellies. I try to calm people down for their sanity and my safety, but it doesn't always work. Well, at least sounds like you're trying to go about it the right way and realize that people can just be nervous. Hell, I drive like a grandma, and I get nervous whenever I see a cop car. For some reason, I'm always like, what did I do? Oh God, they're stopping at the stop sign, probably to turn around and get me. Story 15. I have anxiety. Every time a cop pulls me over, I look guilty, but really, I'm scared of unwarranted police violence and nervous about how much money today's ticket will cost me. Police always notice, and they always say that makes me suspicious, so they have reason to ask to search me and my possessions. I feel like I can't be the only person in the world who gets the jump around police, but they always act like I'm the first person they've ever encountered who acts guilty when I haven't actually done anything. Story 16. Actual police officer here, verified in Protect and Serve. There really is no magic answer. There is a ton of overlap between both groups, and anyone who says they can consistently spot the difference is lying to you. I'd rather judge a situation based on objective facts rather than my gut feeling. Story 17. Random story. So, not long after I got my license, I was driving around, and at a stoplight there was a cop behind me. I hadn't done anything wrong. Cops at that point didn't freak me out yet. And I even knew a kid in school who was planning to become one. The light turns green and I go. I notice behind me everyone is behind the cop on all lanes. It weirded me out. Usually there are cars passing me or next to me. People were giving the cop a nice wide berth, or at least not wanting to drive out ahead of it. It made me feel paranoid and I checked my speed. I was actually going slower than the speed limit. After I figured out everyone was just being paranoid, I sped up to the speed limit, and that was that. The cop was driving slower than the speed limit, and I drove off, leaving them all behind. I felt like the cop probably thought it was hilarious that his presence was slowing down traffic because it wasn't like he was trying to control it. His lights weren't on. Since then, I've had plenty of speeding tickets. Plenty. But not on that day. Cops freak me out now, too. Every time I see one, I go, oh crap, speed limit? I'm okay. Car functioning right? Yes. Drugs in the car? Wait, I don't do drugs. It's a tense situation. Honestly, that kind of surprises me because as much as I worry about the speed limit and try to stick to it, I have rarely seen a cop actually sticking to the damn speed limit. I've been passed by so many cops who were going 5 to 10 miles per hour higher than the limit, but I'm certain if I was doing the same, they wouldn't be too understanding. Story 18. There's a bit in Bryan Cranston's book where he talks about his time as a security guard. His talent was spotting about-to-be shoplifters. His advice? People come to the store because they want something specific, in and out. Watch for the lingerers. Story 19. UK veteran and ex-Metropolitan Police, UK, here. I've just found it's all down to experience when reading people. Your mentor is everything and should be a wealth of knowledge. Learn from them. Also, the weirdos tend to be regulars and someone will know them and tell you all you need to know. Edit. The regulars will be in an intel database somewhere, so any safety issues should made aware to you from control. This includes known aliases. Story 20. Good cue. I never feel I act normal around cops. Funny thing is, I have 2 close relatives who are cops. When I act normal around them, they tell me I should respect that they're cops. Sorry, does this illegal activity that we are both participating in bother you all of a sudden? Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.